Hey guys, I'm glad to be back with videos, but they're kind of going to be slowed down for now. I mean, I'm still kind of getting over being sick. It's not really going that well. I figured I'd give you an update and, a cup about probably one or two stories or something. Well, with that being said, please enjoy the video, and I'm very sorry, guys. I am trying to get better as much as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Scary Studios. Number one.
It was around 9 or 10 at night when I thought it would be a good idea to walk up to the nearby little grocery store, which was less than 10 minutes walk from an apartment that I shared with two of my friends at the time. I have always been a night owl and a snacker, and I had to run out of my favorite snacks, which were pepperoni sticks and Pepsi back then. I got to the store, picked out my items, paid for them, and left with no issues. I was about halfway up the street when I felt a prickling sensation on my back of my neck, as if someone were watching me. Glancing around nervously, I only saw parked cars. I continued to walk, but parked my ears. That's when I heard it. Footfalls. I paused under the guise of tying my shoe to listen closer, and the sound stopped. Thinking that I was only perhaps hearing the echo of my shoes as I walked, I smiled internally and began my way along again. Then I realized that my own footfalls made no echo. And at that, after a moment, the sound of the footsteps I had heard before had started up again. This time, though, they sounded a little closer than they were only moments before. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I felt someone coming up behind me and turned to see a young blond man who looked a few years older than I was at the time. He apologized for startling me, and looking across the street for a second, he asked if he could walk with me. I didn't get any creepy vibes off of him, and the strange footsteps were still sounding behind us as we walked and making my skin prickle, so I agreed. We were nearly to my street when he said, "I don't want to say anything and freak you out or anything, but the reason I was asked to walk with you was I saw a man following you for the last 2 or 3 blocks carrying a crowbar."
Number two.
As I stood at the gates of hell where I would enter into torment, I knew my fate was set. My body was weak from the journey, the long months spent through the human that tore me apart. Now I stood there at the gates of hell itself, waiting for them to open and toss me inside. I wondered and pondered my fate, recalling the circles of hell as they were from ancient literature. Limbo, a calm yet sorrowful eternity in endless monotony. A place to wander until your mind is driven mad by the endless stories the philosophers fill your mind with. Lust, an endless torture of zephyrs that blow its inhabitants through the rocky landscape, tearing their skin and preventing them from rest. Gluttony, a world where the greedy lay in bubbling waste and bile, forever tormented by the presence of Cerberus. Greed, where those of innocent drive for fortune would push mighty stones against each other, their primitive nature to progress, preventing them from seeing the eyes of God himself. Anger, where the wrathful lay waste to each other. Flesh tearing at the bends of a weapon, eyes being gorged out by the teeth of the wicked, never ending. Heresy, a graveyard for those who rejected the Lord, burned for an eternity in a fire in a world that they denied. Violence, a place where the most terrible killers would reside. I doubt I would be here, for I only killed one. Fraud, a mountainous region of stony ditches and bridges, where those of a corrupt mindset would spend, alone begging for mercy from the demons above. And finally, treachery, where Satan himself lies, dreaming in his eternal sleep with his every presence, turning bodies to ice. With this in mind, it opens the gate, a torrent of screaming and yelling, a woman expressing the most horrible pain imaginable. I feel myself being filled, lifted, blood and membrane rolling off on my vulnerable body, as white latex gloves bring me into my own personal hell.